Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult's new movie Renfield hits theaters April 14th. Nicholas Hoult plays the titular Renfield, a lackey of Dracula, and Nicolas Cage stars as Dracula. This is a horror comedy. It looks freaking amazing. All I really need to say is Nicolas Cage as Dracula. Renfield comes in on my April list, and on my guests' April list, Sean Jackson from Lost in the Reel joins me to talk about Renfield. I will give him the first word.
Yes, my number 6 film is Renfield. And I mean, I don't know how you could not put this on your list of most anticipated films for April, because
It is.
We got Nicolas Cage being Crazy Cage as Dracula. And also Nicholas Hoult is amazing. And I've loved him in everything he's done in the past couple of years. I think he's such a solid up-and-coming actor. And we just have a kind of twist on the Dracula story that looks like very fun, kind of violent, but also just, very aware of itself. So this one just looks like a blast.
This one was on my list as well. And the first half of the trailer was one that I was like, well, and then Nicolas Cage comes in like going full Nicolas Cage, and I'm like, oh,
yes,
that's what this movie is. Like, it's not something else. Like, and I also, the other thing I was noticing from the trailer is the guy that's on the series Ghosts. He plays a Revolutionary War guy who's like a rival of George Washington. To see him as the guy who's leading the therapy group session, I was like,
he got the most laughs out of me in that trailer for sure.
Yeah, and he
over Awkwafina.
Yeah. Both of them great, but he in particular, I can't remember his name, but he's kind of an up and coming guy, and I've liked the last couple of things I've seen with him too. So that's the other thing that grabbed my attention from.
I've heard Ghost is really good.
It is really fun. It's based off a British show. It's on CBS, and it's a single camera comedy, and it's actually got a pretty decent sized cast, and it's clearly shot up in Canada. But it's got Utkarsh Ambedkar. I'm butchering his name, but the guy that was in Free Guy. It's got him and Rose McIver. My number 5 is Renfield. As you had already mentioned, this is Nicholas Hoult. This is Nicolas Cage. The first time I saw the trailer for this, we could do the support group thing. That's a pretty it's getting to the point where that's an overused trope, but it can still be funny. And then Nicolas Cage popping in full Nicolas Cage. The only thing that would be better is if we had Andy Samberg popping in as Nicolas Cage, playing Nicolas Cage. This is the type of film that when the Nicolas Cage movie came out last year, where it was Nicolas Cage playing Nicolas Cage, I wanted a movie within a movie that was something like this, where you would see Nicolas Cage going full Nicolas Cage in the movie about Nicolas Cage playing Nicolas Cage. So this is the type of movie that I would have expected for that film. But in this film, I love Nicholas Hoult. I sometimes forget that he's a British actor, because he does so well playing Beast. He does so well playing Americans that you forget that, he probably has an ascot somewhere. Like he actually has that British cultural acting tradition. So to see him playing Renfield with using a British accent, I'm like, that's Beast. He doesn't have. Oh well, he actually is British. So
he's being himself.
Yeah. So seeing him, seeing the two of them together, I had heard the name Renfield before somewhere, but it's been so long, and there's been so many Dracula movies that when you see Bram Stoker's Dracula, you see all these different Dracula movies, the Renfield character is there, but it never gets much focus. So the fact that the supporting character in a Dracula story is getting a story in and of himself, almost like an Interview with a Vampire kind of thing. Obviously different style of films completely.
Oh, yeah.
But having that different perspective, that different take on a well-known character, putting that well-known character in the background, letting Nicolas Cage go insane, and putting Nicholas Hoult in the foreground going, can you believe this guy? Sort of like a comedy duo sort of thing. That it's such a fascinating, interesting idea, and yeah, and then the actor from Ghosts popping up in the trailer too. Also kind of grabs my interest. So Renfield is my number 5 film for April.
I want to mention too, I think it's funny because I think of Renfield and I think it's a movie that's very self-aware and it knows exactly what it is and it's targeting a certain audience. And it's Universal. And Universal just came out with Cocaine Bear, which I feel like is very much so the same. It knows what it is, very self-aware. So I think Universal Pictures are kind of etching out this kind of like niche of mid-budget films, but with such a unique twist or premise to what we're used to, that it's like making people excited to go see movies again, and spend money on a movie that might not be a blockbuster. So I'm excited at what Universal Pictures is doing.
I forgot that Cocaine Bear was a Universal Pictures movie. The cynicist in me would say that all they're doing is trying to come up with a Cocaine Bear ride for Universal Studios, which would be an amazing attraction, and I'm sure kids under 21 would not be allowed, but they would probably still sneak in. Now coming, Cocaine Bear ride at Universal Studios. Yeah, no, and I agree with you too. Like Universal, it's funny when you think about like the classic monster era of Universal Studios going back to the 40s, 50s, all that kind of stuff, and how this kind of follows a little bit in that tradition and going a little bit more of the comedy route. But it definitely looks like they have the fun aspect to it. So I really hope that this is that this is as advertised. You never know for sure with a trailer. Sometimes the trailer is a completely inaccurate representation of what the final film is.
Yeah.
Most of the time that's not the case, but hopefully, fingers crossed, this is actually a comedy.